Hi, and thank you for tuning to the Fight Is All podcast. I'm Seth, and in this episode I'll talk with my favorite Facebook friend, Galin Panchev from Pekiti, Tirsia, Bulgaria. Galin is a street weapon fighting and self-defense specialist. He has a great page and YouTube channel where he explores the very interesting area of weapon fighting and streetwise self-defense. He works in testing the application of common weapons used on the streets in realistic scenarios, including pepper spray, batons, knives, and pistols, and by that debunking a lot of self-defense myths and illusions. If you're interested in the subject, I strongly recommend subscribing to his page and channel. Because street violence happens anywhere in the world, and the knowledge how to react properly in extreme situations can save the life and health of yourself and someone you love. You can access Galin's work on YouTube. His channel is youtube.com THEGALIO, or at Facebook, Pekiti Tirsia Bulgaria, no way I spell that. I'm just gonna put the link in the description. On these channels, he shares a lot of his tactical experiments, techniques, and training drills, and don't be scared from our Bulgarian or materials or in English. Not to lose more time, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll start the episode with one of my favorite videos of his channel named 10 self-defense techniques against a knife attack that will get you killed. And I hope you enjoyed and learned from this episode as much as I did.
Hello, I'd like to show you 10 self-defense techniques against a knife attack in two scenarios, the optimistic one and the pessimistic one. The one that we train for in the gym and the one you are most likely to encounter on the street. And remember always, when training with a knife, use your eye protection. Enjoy. Number 1, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 2, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 3, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 4, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 5, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 6, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 7, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 8, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 9, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. Number 10, optimistic scenario. Pessimistic scenario. So please, train smart and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.
Why do we fight? To protect home and family. To preserve balance and bring harmony. For our kind, the true question is, what is worth fighting for? The Fight Is All podcast.
Okay, so nice to have you, and can you start the story? And yeah, you have a lot of interesting stuff, and you're really my favorite Facebook friend. So
Thank you.
yeah, go for it. Give me your story with the combat sports and martial arts.
Well, my story started in my hometown, which is Shumen. I was like 15 or 16 years of age. I started with Kyokushinkai. It was really old school, and the school was quite big. We were like most of the trainings 30, 40, 50 guys. It was tough.
Shumen had pretty strong Kyokushin. As I remember, Shumen Kyokushin was quite strong back in the days. I haven't never fought in Kyokushin, but I remember they had like pretty strong school there.
Yes, we've had, and also because Varna is near, I think they still have quite strong people out there.
Yeah, Varna was always strong in Kyokushin. Yeah, true.
Yep. So
Alright, go.
I stopped training for some years. I didn't like that much the school, and I had some health issues because when you train Kyokushin, at some point you have health issues anyway. So I continued training basically only weights and fitness stuff, bodybuilding. When I came in Sofia, I started with capoeira. It was kind of a dream because of I guess you watched the movie with Mark Dacascos.
Mark Dacascos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
good movie.
I think it was only the brave. Yeah, so I started capoeira until a guy with a pistol robbed me and my friend after training in capoeira, and I just realized that the world out there is a bit different than my expectations. And yeah, it was a funny moment.
Culture
And
shock.
yeah, virtual,
Capoeira and Bulgarian guns.
absolutely. And this is when I started to look out for something that's a bit more. I don't like the word real because basically everything is real, but more street oriented. Because even if you want to go to train something, you need to first survive going there. And it appeared that weapons are basically part of the world and crime out there. So that's how I started in Pekiti, Tirsia, and it's been 15 years now. I also have some jiu-jitsu training. I started last year again to train in grappling. I'm
Yeah,
training.
no, you asked me that. I was happy to see you. You know,
Yes,
you had cool video recently in shot of the guy who is holding you in June Mount or Scar Code.
yes.
That was good.
Yeah, I'm exploring the Kesagatama now. Because this is one of the positions that it's usually pretty much dominant for the person that's above, and the knife changes a lot. So I'm exploring that
Well,
right.
the thing with Kesegatame is, by my own experience, in fighting, is it works better with coding, with gi or with coding than with no gi. I don't really, I don't really like to do Kesegatame like if you don't have gi on. I don't really teach my students when they do no gi in MMA. It's pretty easy to counter. It's pretty much the first thing you want to counter. So it's better with coding. It really works, but it's really weak position if you don't have code. If you don't know how to do it though, it's still hard position to hold without coding. I use it for transitional position to get something else than just to hold as a pin. As a pin, rather use not in Nogi.
Well, I'd like to see variations of this because I don't know that much transitions. Where do you transition from Kesagatame to a side mount or what?
Oh, I normally go side mount and north south. Because Kesegatame as a pin, as a holding position is not really stable without gi. You can use it as a pinning position with gi, like in sport wise. I know you exploring more like for the street wise technique, but under the rules on sambo, judo, or jiu-jitsu, you can use Kesegatame very successfully. But if you do Noogie grappling. Kesegatame is really hard to hold and really easy to counter for the. So I try to have my students avoiding it as position where they don't have the Galin, because now it happens like this, that now my trainings are mostly Noogie oriented, because I'm mostly working for MMA, and my students are competing Noogie grappling because of MMA. So I don't pretty much I forbid this position just because of the goals that I have as technically.
Yep. And do you train gi?
Not some gi competitions, but because my main goal is MMA, we use this only as additional competition. So I try not to use no gi technique for gi training, just to keep it specific for MMA. Then to do gi specific techniques that only gonna work in no-gi condition. By the way, speaking about streetwise, here you will hardly find people with stable coding to use Kesegatame, because now it's winter here, it's about 20 degrees in Australia. So the winter here is my best summer. I hate Australian summer, which is on Christmas. So when back home it's like real winter, there's snow on Christmas, here it's 40 degrees. I was dying the first year where I came here. Walking 50 meters, and I need to take rest. I was thinking I'm gonna die in this country. It was absolutely hell for me. And I'm even from Siberia. I'm not made for that, man. I'm dying. I'm better now after a couple of years, but my first year was hell here. Really
And
hard.
how much time did it took you to get used to the weather out there?
Only the very hot months was problem for me, and it took me. First year was bad, second year was better, and now like it's kind of good. I'm already make like 5 years, so it took me about like 2 years, to get adjust my body to get good with the weather, especially the hot months, which is November, December. The thing is, I think is your biological clock is also a thing, because your body expects to be cold on this month. So it's kind of absolute shock for your body. It's supposed to be cold and you to be eating and bulking, but it's not. It's super hot and you're melting. It was very hard the first year. First year was terrible. Second year was already kind of alright, and now I'm good. That's alright.
And do you have now hard time going back in Bulgaria for a few weeks or?
Well, I was back home 2016, but I went during the summer, and I was working this time at Asia. I was in Laos and Thailand, so I didn't have the shock because in Thailand it becomes a bit cold during the rain season. It's not cold, but like 10-ish degrees, like almost 10 degrees. So it's kind of get chilly. So I didn't really had like the shock to come back. I'm planning this year to come back about the Christmas holidays. So I'll tell you then how it will go.
If you survive.
I'll try. I won't die so easy, but probably be cold.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to knife fighting. How you started training in Pekiti Tirsia? Have you had any teachers, or you kind of how you started that?
Well, back at the time when this robbery appeared, it was a turning point really. I had contacts with the instructor in Vietnamese martial arts. In another city, Stara Zagora. So my instructor back then was Krasimir Vasiliev, that's the name. And I went to a festival, martial arts festival he made. And then I could see for the first time my teacher, the person who would become my teacher, Daniel Tanev. Back then he was doing a very, very interesting mixture between Wing Chun, grappling, and Filipino martial arts. Yes, it was very interesting to watch, and I had basically no experience with none of that. So I was like, this was another cultural shock. and I could meet him, and that's how we started training. Was I was a student back then, and I could travel like each 2 or 3 months to Stara Zagora for a 1 day seminar. There it was like training. I think 2 times for 4 hours and half an hour rest, something like that. It was tough, quite tough, because he was there all the time, of course, but I could train with all of his students they were coming for half an hour training or stuff like that, and I was all the time. And there were many funny moments, like I was waiting for my train, and my bag. That this is after training, probably after the second training like that I had. And because of the stick training and the stick fighting, when you grab the stick, when you do it and you're not used to it, when you hit with the stick like 2 or 3 hours in a row, you basically cannot hold your wrist, so your hands are stiff like this. And from the knife tapping, which is basically you are pummeled in this part of the hand, so I can't really use my hand in any way, and my train is coming, and I can't really pick up my bag. It was very funny for me for a couple of minutes just to figure out what to do. And this is how I started, and we trained in this manner for 2 or 3 years. This is happening 2004, 5, 6 in this range. Then I made a group in Sofia and started to invite him here for seminars. This is how Pekiti Tirsia became a bit wider spread in Bulgaria. Then people from other cities could see that we do interesting stuff. Back then, we were going in Germany with Uli Veidle, he was back then the European instructor for Pekiti Tirsia. He was the person who introduced Pekiti Tirsia in Europe, I think. And that's the way we trained. So this was up to 2015, 16, I think. Then we separated our paths, and now I'm going in Hungary to Honbill for I think 4 years now. So basically, that's what's going on.
Oh, who's doing? I remember when I was in Sofia, someone was making these open days for sparring, and during the times of WBG, the forum, and like you was able, to go there to spar with sticks. And who's doing that? Remember that?
I think Pavel Velchev. Yes.
Yeah. Well, pretty much that's my experience from with stick fighting and knife fighting, because I was always interested, but because of my training, I was never really able, to do it for real. So I think I went there twice. But the thing is, and that's what I'm telling to guys when we speak about knives and fighting, and I hate the word self-defense and stuff like that. That it's just absolutely different concept, because when I went there, to spar with these guys, and I was, like being very hard at that time, very active. So for these guys, the concept of fighting is absolutely different when they have knives. So I even when I fight, I spar them. It's not fun, just fun sparring. But when you spar with them, I'm looking for the same targets. I'm looking, for the face, to score takedowns and stuff like that, kick or whatever. But for them, with the people who train with weapons, who train with stick, who train in knives, they have different targets. They have targets with my wrists, my legs. They're targets for them. For me, these are my weapons, but for them, they are targets. So it's absolutely different combat. And I quickly realized that if you have to fight with a guy who knows how to fight with weapon, you cannot use, like you can, but it's different concept of fight. It's very different concept. It's very
Well,
interesting.
yeah, this is very, very huge topic, and of course we have enough time to discuss it. So there are very, very many misconceptions and logical fallacies and biases also in this, because you can never get real enough in this manner, because the stick, there are basically like two main types of stick fighting you would like to use and you can see. One is so-called blade rules. So we pretend the stick is a blade, and we don't get intentionally into clinch. We don't get into hit each other more than 2 or 3 times, because basically this makes no sense. And the other thing is what most people.
If that's the blade, you're gonna be dead.
Well, you can see many people who get hit with a blade and are still alive. They manage to do it. So it's even with a blade, there are many ifs and buts there, and you can see some people who manage to get into a clinch with a other guy wielding a machete or stuff like this. So it's really big. The first thing that changes the weapon is the distance, because most of the people who come from empty-handed martial arts, they are used to stay much closer than actually is a good idea with the weapon.
That was me.
Yeah. Also, one of my best students and the partner, that's the person that's killing me on most of my videos. He's a boxer, so from the beginning he was trying to get close, and he was all the time he was getting some knife thrusts into his face. That's a thing, and basically what we want to do is to stay out of the range for at least one big step. So that's a very, very huge gap, and most most of the time you don't want to trade punches in any way with a knife. And it gets even more complicated if only one of the persons has a knife, or one of them has a stick. And there is a big part of the people who train in that, and they cannot really manage the distances like you can do in MMA. You have your chances basically, and also some things that work all the time in MMA will work against the weapon, like double leg, like a single leg, and even the low single leg. I've done this uh, quite a few times against the stick. You can, if there's nothing better to do, you can also try it against a knife. Most of the people who train in Filipino martial arts only cannot react uh, against an attack like that, against an aggressive type of attack into clinch and into to takedown. Most of the time you can do a low double leg or a low single leg, just because the person would never expect, and even if he expects, he is not trained into this type of attacks. You can see most of the people who train with sticks and knives, they stand up against each other all the time, and most of the punches and the strikes they trade is against the armed hand, against the torso, against the face, and basically when you lower everything down, many people cannot even understand what happened. And you will have your chances if you manage to go into side control immediately after that. Sometimes you maybe even won't get damaged. And of course, what you're going to do after that is a whole new topic.
Well, I think you share that, and it was going around in Facebook recently. A guy who was like MMA guy or coach or something like that, who was attacked by a guy with machete in his. So he pretty much like mentioned, to fight with him and to not even to survive, to stop the attack and pretty much to hold the guy from not neutralize him. So yeah, well, the thing is to be able to survive in that situation, you should know how to fight. And I love mostly I love your videos when you're debunking self-defense. These are my favorite ones. First of all, because they're funny, and second because I'm grown up in Bulgaria, and you have this bad fame of knife fight. I was in knife fight only twice, and both times I used to throw something heavy over the guy, right? So I was never the guy with the knife. One time I used the bar chair, and the other time there was something else happened. But the thing is, when I watch this, self-defense videos, because they don't work. When I hear self-defense, it's a sign, right? Like if you know how to fight, then it's something else. That's why I love your videos because they're real. They make sense. Like I never train. I'm telling you, I'm never trained with weapons, but I can make a difference when something makes sense and when something doesn't. You cannot expect from a guy who is trying to hurt you with a weapon to be so stupid. That's one of the main concept in the self-defense video. The guy with the weapon is always stupid, but it's not the case. The guy with the weapon has intention to hurt you. He will kill you. He's not reacting to that's stupid. That's one of the main things. And it's very widespread. I keeps watching all the time. I have this sweet tooth to watch these bullshit martial art videos. Like it kind of when I move they make me laugh. But I just keep being surprised how stupid people can be and to expect that from someone who attack. And they spend years training bullshit. That's the main shit.
Well, many of these people live in an environment without any violence, and to be honest, you can do basically everything, and it will make no difference at all. And I guess that's the reason why many people go into martial arts and into trainings that don't require too much effort from them. It's easy and it won't make a difference, and that's it.
Yeah, the easy way is so as a track. It's the selling dreams. People are selling dreams, but
yes,
fighting is not that fun normally. At least it's fun when you're good in it. When you're good, fun, but you still get. People realize that you're good in fun. That's the thing. I had a coach who was saying, when I was competing kickboxing, he was saying the champion eats the most beating because you fight the most fights until the final. You fight 4 or 5 times. If you lose once, it's alright. But if you're the champion, you fight 3-4 times and you reach the final. So you get the most beating. The champion takes the most beating. He fights the most.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing couple of. You have several series of videos. And I'm thinking I want to put like a link to your channel, but tell me about these experiments that you do with not only with the knife. You recently make this experiments with these sprays for self-defense. How did that went?
Well, I'm involved now in a project that's into women's self-defense, and the first thing you can see into self-defense is a different topic also, but in women's self-defense is that people are starting from the wrong point every time. Like many jiu-jitsu guys are trying to sell jiu-jitsu and they start from the guard, and they miss that usually the situation starts. All of the situations start at the same way, and they start standing. And of course, it's very nice if a woman can spend like 5, 6 years training twice or 3 times a week in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and yes, then she will might probably manage to get out of the situation, but most of the people can't. So I have already some 3 years of experience in my former job with untrained people, and the specifics in self-defense is that basically you are trying to train a person to survive a situation in which he is always going to be um, with less intent to harm anyone, because these are normal people. They don't want to just go somewhere and hit anyone. They will most of the time be in worse physical condition. They will be usually smaller. They will be surprised, and you just can't really train them that much in technical stuff because they don't have the time to be good at it virtually. So it's very difficult, and of course, this is where we introduce weapon training. And Uh, it's not that easy in Bulgaria to get a firearm, and even if it is easy, many people just don't want to do it anyway. So you need to do some you need to get some equalizer, and pepper spray can be of any use. But as you can see in many videos, basically most of the videos that testing pepper sprays, they're testing all the time two people that stand in front of each other, sometimes even in a punching distance, and one of them is just spraying the other one for several seconds, even sometimes minutes in the face, and this doesn't happen anyway. So I'm trying to get some methods into introducing pepper sprays into self-defense training, and that's why we made these tests, because first of all, most of the people who carry a pepper spray don't carry them in their hands already when they know they're going into an environment where they can be attacked. So that's the first problem. There is no really good way to carry pepper spray in your bag or somewhere in you. It has to be in your hand already. And you cannot, basically, if the person sees the pepper spray and sees you have an intent of using something like this, it is really easy to protect against that. And this you can see on the videos, like it is just enough to move out of the line of the attack, and just to spread your arms in front of your face, and this can manage to get like 90% of everything that's coming in your face.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I was watching. I didn't. I think I watched a couple of those videos with the pepper sprays.
Yep.
And I was surprised that I use pepper spray, and I was surprised how ineffective they are. I was expecting them to be quite more effective, because you guys were spraying each other with this, and pretty much one was just like spraying his hands and just turning the head, and there was no damage, no real effect. I mean, like, if someone wants to hurt you, that's not gonna stop him.
Yes.
Like, if he wanna get close to you and hurt you, even without weapon, he will do it anyway.
Yes. And there is a very funny moment in the middle of the video when my friend is coming towards me, and I'm spraying him like with what's virtually the best thing in this business. It's the Saber Red stream, and it's supposed to make a stream, and it just doesn't work. So he's coming towards me. He's polite enough to stop at a punching distance, and everything I have is just a small amount of spray that's going in the other direction from the wind. And I had to spray him again just to get some effect on this. Of course, he's waiting, and if this was real, I was pretty much gone back then. Even if he doesn't have a knife or something, we would be in a situation to trade some strikes, and that spray wouldn't come in hand anyway. And something very interesting that I managed to see back then is that even the people who are trying to make these sprays, to brand them and to sell them, don't notice things that like the spray should be in a vertical position all the time, because there is basically just air under pressure there, and if you have it upside down or in a position like it's usually in your pocket or in your bag and something, there is a very, very big chance of it malfunctioning when you try to use it. So at the beginning, most of the people don't first carry them in their hand, and don't carry them in such a way that they can be sure it will work. And this exact spray, it has like, it should have about 25 pushes in there. I mean, you should be able to use it like 25 times, and we used it just for the video like 7 times, I think, and 2 of them were basically a fail, which is very significant percent of what you're gonna deliver. And
was
of
that
course,
2 of 7?
yes, it's like 2 of 7.
What you say 2 of 7 was that? So 2 of 7. So that less than 30%.
Yes.
28%.
That's the time it didn't work, but that's pretty much a lot. It should work every time. And even, well, the main problem is to deliver this thing into the face of the person. And here the trainings will help a lot, because after I see this and we start to trading punches, you basically should do what you are used to do. You should, still think one of the best thing is an uppercut, or kind of an uppercut, just to get below his hands, because the main damage we delivered in this spray test video was with aerosol, and it was when the guy sprayed me in my chest. So the pepper get into my nose, and it worked really nice. It was really nice, because I felt something very heavy in my chest, and I couldn't breathe for a minute and something. I mean, if we were in a fight, I really wouldn't be able to deliver that much of a problem to the other person. But that was just once, and it was with the cheapest spray of them all. And people are usually advertising stream and jet. If you don't get this exactly into the eyes of the person, nothing will happen virtually. And if you don't manage to get the distance, and if you don't train any martial arts, you will not manage to get in the proper distance. You will be immediately into some type of a clinch fighting, and it will make no sense for you to use the spray or something else. And something we also noticed, even if we're talking about the very strong stream and jet sprays, basically all of them come into you at some point. And if you get into a fight there, or both of you are going to have some pepper spray on your hands, on your face, and etc. It's a really nice tool, but you should be able to, you should train with it, and you should know the pros and the cons, and most of the people are not doing it anyway.
Well, from what you just said, it's not very convincing that pepper spray is very effective thing for self-defense. For all that you just said and the video I watched, I was like, I'd rather keep training my stuff. This thing
Yeah.
doesn't because what you just said is pretty much it still brings to a fight. It might help you, but it might also like be a trouble for you, because if it happens on a fight and you spray on both of you, you might actually make damage to yourself, so which is gonna be worse.
Yes, the curiosity is that you can see at the end of the video we are using the absolutely strongest type of spray. That's jet. It's a big bottle, and after it is sprayed, most of the damage was on the guy that sprayed it. Because even if it's a very strong stream that you do, it at the ends of this stream, it basically that's very small, and it behaves as an aerosol, as each type of deodorant. So it basically every time gets back into you or in the direction of the wind, and you should, when you spray, you should always walk backwards after this. Because if you stay in the area, actually some of the camera crew got more damage than myself just because they passed around where the spray was. Yes, and you should get out of the way of the attack, of course, and you should get out of the area you sprayed, and you should start spraying before you get into kicking range, because once you get into kicking range you should kick already and you should do your stuff. So it's a nice addition, but it's not like I get a pepper spray and I have no more problems. No, you have a lot of problems still.
So as a moral from the story is pepper spray doesn't replace training. You still have to train to use this,
Yes.
and you still have to train to fight.
Yes.
Okay,
Main
so
problem, yep.
yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Main problem with untrained people is that they don't know the distance, and they allow very easy to for the other person to pass all of the distance and get really close. When if we are like one hand from each other, basically the one who starts first probably will finish the fight back then, right there. That's the main thing that makes the difference between the trained and untrained person. And in this case, it doesn't matter that much if you train weapons and or just empty hands, because you already know where kicking range is. This is the longest range that you should be able to get your person in. If he's at striking range, you should already be striking, or you should move out of the distance.
Okay, so from your personal experience, weapon-wise, which weapon you usually like for? Obviously, pepper spray is not your favorite. So what you would suggest as a most effective self-defense weapon?
Well, unfortunately, that would be knife and pistol. If you don't have a pistol, I don't have a firearm anyway. Knife is the thing, because Most of the people won't get into a knife fight anyway if they know they are in. If you have a folding knife, you can still hit it with it without using the blade, without switching it. And that's a thing that can enhance your powers, because there is a big difference between hitting a person with your hand and hitting a person with something you hold in your hand. You will always be more efficient and also effective in what you do if you are holding something. So that's the real thing. It has always been the real thing. It's knife and firearms. And of course, if you can carry a baton, that's also nice. But the baton has the problems that it's bulky, and if you carry it, you won't be able to get it out of to get it in use already, because it will be in a bag or somewhere. So these are the main problems. Main problem is the problem of delivery, because if you're not aware, you might get into a self-defense situation. You are probably going to just walk in it and stuff will happen.
Yeah, the thing is, it's hard time to pull it out when you're actually self-defending, because normally, as you said, in such situation you're actually surprised.
Yeah, that's why the most important thing is to manage your awareness. I don't believe in any kind of a fast draw, just because even if the person is trained, if you carry a firearm, and if you're not trained in martial arts, MMA, boxing, or etc., most of the people, again, if you know only firearms, you don't know the distance where you can be punched, and you don't know the speed and the distance from which someone can go into a double takedown or etc. So you're pretty much screwed, even if you think that your firearm will solve anything. That's why I always try to explain people that most important thing is just get somewhere and train something, because you will know the distance from which people can hurt you. And then of course you can try different trainings and different things, but that's the main disadvantage of each person that is not trained in using his hands and some short weapon like the knife and etc.
Personally, I think that if you're training any competitive combat sport, that gives you some how to deal under pressure. That's the
Yeah.
main thing, because I think that most of the people who train self-defense as self-defense only, it's not on, even if the techniques that they're doing are like awesome and maybe is the case, but anyway, the problem with these guys is that they wouldn't react the way they train under pressure, because especially if you have been involved in any sort of combat or competitive combat, you know that the adrenaline is changing the whole thing. That's the main thing in combat sport. You can be awesome on training, but the adrenaline rush and the pressure when you have to fight for real is changing everything. So that's one of the things I think is very useful if you train any competitive sport, even if you don't compete. But if you just have live sparring, that teaches you that how the things are working under pressure, and giving your brain these patterns to react if you're in that situation or your way.
Yes, I totally agree to that, and also something else to add. Many people who train stick a knife exactly, Filipino martial arts, they've virtually never been hit even like 50 or 60% of the power they could be hit. And I've had some situations. If the person even though she's training like 2 or 3 years with a knife, with the intent to kill or injure anyone, like that should be at some point the mentality. Even if you hit him in like a body shot or something, he just stops with everything. Just his adrenaline goes to the top, and he can't do basically anything. And that's why, even if empty hands is not your thing and you don't want to do it, of course, I don't want to fight anyone, especially empty-handed. You should train empty hands, and you should have some bag work, and you should hit people exactly for what you said, just to see how they react and how you react and how you position your body. And you can, if you see many, basically any kind of a video in Filipino martial arts, as you have a full contact experience, you can see that there are many people out there, even big names, that they don't have the body positioning. You can see they can't really hit with the power and with using their weight in this, because people look in a different way, they behave in a different way, and they are used to that. So I totally agree with that, and I can just tell to everyone, just go and train things. That's it.
And something else that you just said briefly about it is, I think when people train with intention to kill, right, or severely injure someone, the problem is when you have to use this in real situation, you don't really go for that, because
Yeah.
there is no person who in self-defense situation wants to kill someone. So I think that's also a problem. I mean, even if these techniques are effective, you don't really want to kill someone, because you don't really go in jail for that. Because if you kill him, even if you're defending, you go in jail. So I think I don't know. I don't really know how this is going in training. I wish you to tell me that how you actually manage and sort to what extent you train like dangerous technique, and how you manage that to do in your sessions as a coach.
Well, you just go for the things one after the other. You don't went there with the intent to kill. You train, so you pull your knife with the intent to get out of the situation. In this way, I'd like to say also the knife dueling is a nice thing, but it shouldn't be allowed. Knife versus a knife is the stupidest thing you can get into. It's even more dumb than pistol against the pistol. Knife has no stopping power. There is a very, very big chance of me and you just stabbing each other until one of us collapses first and the other one collapses after that. So you should not get into so-called knife fights anyway. If you are able to see a knife, you can usually at this point talk your way out, because the person probably is not going to try to harm you in any way. So it's a tool
Or
of
just throw
intimidation.
something heavy and run. That was my
Yes.
experience. Get
Yes.
something heavy, throw it over the guy, and run.
Yes, and it's like basically it's like when you get on the ground, you try to work with what you have. So if you go on the ground like side mount, and I'm on the bottom position, I would not go for the kill immediately. Anyway, I would try to try and pull my knife, and I will try to search targets that will allow me to get out of there. So I will firstly probably try to cut hands, or stab where I can stab. It's a short knife, so if it's not a stab in the throat or in the heart area, it won't do that much damage. Probably it won't kill you yeah, right on there. So what you manage is that you try to work on the situation. You don't just go That's why I don't like that much knife dueling, because if me and you are just standing one against each other with a knife, that's not self-defense. It's not reasonable, and whatever happens, some probably both of us are going in jail if someone survives, of course. So it's a nice exercise, but as you do your sparring, not with the intent of just going on the street against someone in a guard and trying to punch each other, you should use it yes, as a tool to understand distance, to understand timing, and of course, if you see something is going on, you should just get out of there. So this is how you train. Also, something else we do is because main thing usually in knife fighting is first thing trying to stab the person. You can try to slash the face. That won't kill him, but of course, if you have the time and the situation allows that, you should not go immediately for the kill. You should try to give the other person enough time to think about that. It's like going into punching just 2 or 3 strikes and then get out of on a longer distance just to allow him, if he wants to stop, to stop. That's also good advice for empty-handed self-defense. Like, I don't know how it's in there in Australia, but basically everywhere, if we're just punching each other, there is no good guy and bad guy here. That's just two people who are having a behavior that will end with someone in jail. No one wants to see that. Uh, you should get in distance and try to all the time to give the other person an opportunity to stop. And something else we sometimes do, you can do knife sparring, and when someone gets stabbed, of course you cannot be sure what the delivery of this will be. But when someone gets stabbed, we stop with the sparring, and the person that's getting some damage is trying uh, to see what kind of a damage he has, and he is trying to get some medical help that he can apply to himself, or the other person is doing it. So basically, you have the obligation, if you at some way disable the person, whether with a weapon or without a weapon, you should actually help him survive. That's a bit twisted thing, but you should do. And a bigger issue than knife fighting, especially in Bulgaria, is like when people fight, that's usually an ego thing, and when someone punches the other person and he falls on the ground, when they hit the head on the concrete, people sometimes die or get heavily injured. So it's not very different with the knife. It's might usually, if you manage to, if you think you can control the situation, you could usually go for a clinch, for a takedown, and try to control him on the ground, then just kick him in the face, let him fall on the concrete and die. Just that's not really a nice self-defense advice. So if you want to adapt knife fighting into a self-defense, you have very, very similar challenges into if you want to do MMA as a self-defense. Like, you should try to change some part of the game, because if a policeman or someone else is watching you, how you tackle a person down, you get a knee on the stomach and just pound him, that's an assault. That's not self-defense, basically. And it's a totally different thing if you tackle him down get knee on the stomach and try to control him just without damaging him too much. That's very clear who is defending and who is not. And also some takedowns, the double leg takedown in judo, the classical one, is when you try to get his feet, and basically the intent is to hit his head on the ground. It's a different. Yes,
What's called
yes. There is actually a video of some Mexican guys fighting on a parking lot, and the one, I don't know if he has any training or not, because that's pretty much common. The one tries to do this kind of morote gari, and he really does it in this manner. So he catches the other guy behind his knees and just stands up. The other guy hit his head with the bottom of his head, and I think he died out there. So he managed to get out of the situation, but he's going to prison anyway, and that's also a challenge. And even I think now, when I have more judo experience, I think some of the judo throws more dangerous than some of the knife fighting.
Well, there was a saying, if all fights was done on concrete, everyone would be training judo. Those big throws on concrete is devastating.
Yes, and many of the judo throws don't make any sense on the mat, and that's why some part of the modern type submission grappling is just going there. No throws. Throws are a big thing, and at this point I would really like to get more into it. It's a very hard thing to be thrown, and it can work in all types of situations. I really like that.
Are you have time to go to train my sambo coach Batevaso?
Not yet, because they have a big school and they have a lot of people, and I'm not good enough. I want to get at a level where I know what I'm doing and I know what to get out of it, because when I get into the submission grappling, like it was about a few months ago, I think 5 or 6 months ago, I have the problem that competition grappling is very, very interesting thing, but it's not my main thing. I am trying to see what happens with grappling in a weapon environment, and this dictates the things in a different way. Like you don't get into other better position if you have to release the hand. Even if you're not in that good position and you can't make any submission out of it, you just have to stay there. And this is when I started appreciating the judo pins, because in submission grappling and in MMA environment, pins make no sense, of course, but pins are a great thing if you can't manage to get out of the situation immediately, and pins are an awesome thing for scenarios on 2 versus 1, because one of the people can try kesagatame and the other person can pin the legs, because there are also old school pinning on the legs. You can also try one of them if he's doing a kesagatame. The other person could manage to get an arm lock of some kind of the free hand, and etc. So there are many things that are thrown out of the competition context, but they absolutely make sense for me, and it's a bit more different approach. And as for sambo, they have very nice throws, but a big part of what I've seen is made to work on the mat, and problems with throws, like judo guys, like they are so into the throw, they don't really care what happens then. So I managed to to submit some quite advanced judo guys just because they throw me and they have no awareness of what happens after the throw.
Well, generally, that's a common weakness with
Yeah.
the judo as a style. So as a rule set. So especially in the common ground for combat sports like MMA, they don't care about keeping balance and continuing the fight after the throw. The throw is where the fight finishes for them, and that's where the submission grappling BJJ guys are getting them, because once they hit the ground, that's where the fight starts for them. So this is huge weakness with the modern judo because of the rule set. Old judo, they actually have quite a lot of submissions. I've seen these old videos when they actually do the advanced guards in jiu-jitsu, which is the wariba. It's pretty much like archive judo video with the guy like in Japan like shooting it. Like it was years before this become famous as the wariba. But unfortunately, the competition rules now they took this game of judo and they can clear scoring throws. So that's a big problem with judo, that is taking of effectiveness of the ground game of judo.
They still have that Kosen judo. That's it's not that popular, but they still do it. And you can see many of the guard pulls and other stuff that nowadays is called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Actually, it's done in Japan like several hundred years ago. It's just there. It's not that popular. But what I really like in judo is that you really need to have some kind of sport grappling that is safe. Just to get kids and people that are not really fit and don't want to be that active in competition to do some kind of grappling arts in a very, very safe environment. And this is what they're doing with sport judo now. At least that's what I think. They're banning some techniques, and they are just leaving what's the most safest ones. Even they don't have too many joint locks, just because they are not safe. So yes, that's basically a problem if you only train judo. But I don't think like in the modern days there is someone who is really passionate about martial arts and doesn't go train 2 or 3 martial arts, or at least in 2 or 3 different gyms, because even if your trainer and your environment is great and the people are good, they tend to do some things and tend not to do other type of like throws and techniques.
Everyone has his own preference. That's
yes. So if someone is really passionate about martial arts, he should already be going into different gyms and training with different people. So that's not. I don't think that's a big deal.
Sweet. So my favorite video of yours is when you're debunking the self-defense, like realistic and what was it? Optimistic and you say pessimistic scenario. I always wanted you to name it like realistic scenario. Can you talk about that a bit, about the optimistic situations in self-defense?
Well, self-defense starts with optimism. Usually there is no self-defense, and that's what Grand Tuhon Liu Gahe says quite some decades ago, that self-defense doesn't exist. Unfortunately, self-defense for the most part really doesn't exist. There's not such thing. Most of the things videos and stuff you can see as self-defense is just branded things, and that's such a huge topic. You can see everything, like that saying that every fight goes on the ground. No. And also that many fights go on the ground, but all of them start standing. That's also a no. You can see everything going on, and this gives many people claim all kinds of stuff to be proven, efficient, and etc. Basically, most of this is fraud. It's fake, and unfortunately, there is no real solution to this other than just people going into the gym. Like now, I have different types of challenges because when I'm trying to make a self-defense course, main problem is time. Like if you have, that's also a challenge also for you. Like if you have 20 hours of training with person, what will you show him? That's it. If you know he's like going to train for you like 20 hours or like 30 hours, or even the other main question is how much hours of training do you need with a person to teach him something, virtually something. I mean, not to make him good into anything specific, but to just show him this is where we kick, this is where we punch, these are where we can get on the ground, and this is what can happen. And if you don't have even 20 hours, if you have like 12 hours, what do you do? And you know it does make a really big difference if you have these 12 hours in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, in 2 months. These are the real challenges to a self-defense course. And many people, when they try to judge a self-defense system or something like that in this case, is that it doesn't work like this, or the people are not good in it. Yes, they are. But if you know, most of the people, if not all, that are interested in this type of training, they won't stay for you and train 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Like they won't they will not get good into anything ever, just because they don't want to get good at it. And that's my main challenge now, and this is why I'm introducing pepper spray, and also we'll do this with the gas pistol. Many people outside of the Eastern Bloc in Europe don't even know such things exist. That's because
I had a gas pistol and was struck. A guy pulled it out on me. I beat him, and I had it for years. And then I get it was not mine.
Yeah, well, it was at some point. Yeah, so if I have a person that's gonna train a month, like 12 hours of training, how much of that should be pepper spraying someone? How much of that would be just maintaining distance? And you see in the video series that's coming, I think, in September with the women's self-defense, main topic should be footwork and how to avoid getting close to people. So how much time we will spend on this? How much time we will spend on punching? And because there is a very big problem with punching, the way they do it in boxing and also in MMA, you need quite a lot of time to learn a straight punch. And you can basically, I'm sure you've spent 12 hours of training with people who cannot even punch after this. You should explain how to position their hands, and when the target is moving, they just basically will never position their hands properly, and etc. So that's really a challenge to a self-defense course, and I don't think I don't have that much answers right now, but I'm gonna get some answers.
Okay, how people can get in touch to your YouTube channel and yourself in your trainings?
Well, I think the YouTube is the best thing for this. I'm having some video series on it. Yeah, this is where the place I'm uploading stuff from trainings, and I'm trying to to get now very often, at least twice a week, videos, very short videos, like less than 2 minutes. Not too much of an explaining, more showing me stuff and more straight to the point things. I don't have introductions. I don't have animation. It's just straight to the point. You can very easily from the beginning of the video understand if you're interested or not. So my YouTube channel would be the best place for this.
Yeah. Are your videos in English?
Yes, I think all of them, but two, but they are old. So everything will be in English because I would like to get into all kinds of people in different countries and etc.
Okay, and my favorite question in a broad sense, what is worth fighting for?
Everything. You know, fighting can be even talking. You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
as in modern times, most of the people are fighting in Facebook. So
You're good in that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
follow with that. And I also like you often get in trouble and getting blocked
yeah,
for 30 days.
yeah. Like now,
Oh, you're blocked now?
yes. One of my main profile is blocked, and I'm from my alternative profile. Yes. But that's nothing. I have a friend who has like 4 accounts in Facebook and has 18 bans each 1 month.
Ooh, that's a champion.
Yes, he's a champion, and that's on his main account. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that
this
guy.
can go on for quite a lot of time.
Okay. Thanks, brother. Thanks for this. It was really interesting, and it was super interesting for me. I guess it's going to be interesting for everyone. I'm going to put links for that. Thank you for listening to the Fight Zone podcast. Subscribe in your podcast app to receive the next episode where I will talk with the fight dietitian Jordan Sullivan. I personally can't wait to release this episode. Jordan is a scientist and martial artist, and he specializes in a very important part of our sport, the weight cut. He hosts the Fight Science podcast where he explores the subject of the weight cut process and nutritioning with other high-level scientists, and I personally think his podcast is a must for every combat sport athlete.